So I'll start with the usual. Light logs or vlogs where I chat about whatever's on my mind. They're not scripted, but I do have notes so I don't forget what I wanted to say. And this is what I wanted to say. If you're listening to this, I assume you either watched my series or played the game yourself. For anyone else, Genesis Noir is basically a game about the history of the universe, framed as a tragic love story set to jazz with a noir aesthetic. Simple, right? And since I finished playing it weeks ago, I'm going to pull up my videos and skim the cutscenes as a refresher. Now, you won't see me doing that, obviously. I'm doing it right now as I write these notes. And thankfully, the game wasn't that long, so there are only 6 episodes to browse. And by the way, if you ever hear me move away from the mic, it's because I'm reaching for my celts. So tasty, though it does make me sound more spitty when I'm recording things. Like I notice that when I edit, if I'm drinking seltzer, it's like it wets everything. And then I start to sound like this when I'm recording and it's disgusting. So I'm gonna wipe my mouth and hope that helps. Anyway, the main thing I want to talk about is the ending, since that's what stumped me, but I need to go through all of it again to help me nail that down. So let's start with the characters. I play as No Man, and I don't think I noticed that was his name until the last episode. And since everything in Genesis is a cosmic metaphor running parallel to the science of the universe, I think No Man represents time. He sells watches, he lives in a clock tower, and he manipulates time. I mean, throughout the game, I'm freezing it, speeding it up, reversing it, so that just seems obvious. I also love his name, if I'm right anyway, because it's a well-known saying that time waits for no man, or that the tide abides no man. That may be modern paraphrasing, but the point is that no man can stop time. So it's really clever to turn that on its head by making it literal. No man can stop time. So the character No Man can stop time. Miss Mass, I think, represents mass. And since mass determines gravitational pull, it's smart to depict it as an attractive woman everyone gravitates towards. And since the pull is stronger, the greater the mass is, the fact that she attracts others so much speaks to how massive she is. And in this case, as a famed jazz singer who ropes anyone who gets too close into her orbit. Golden Boy, the character I mainly called God during my playthrough, I thought at first that he represented stars because he's golden. He became a constellation, and it fit the washed up musician story, that he was a star that burned bright, that others looked up to and admired, but eventually faded. But then I figured if the others are time and mass, maybe Golden Boy isn't a star specifically, maybe he's just energy. And that would make more sense since he triggered the Big Bang, or he propelled it. It also makes sense because energy can't be destroyed, it can only change form, and he's the only one who changes his form throughout the game. He never disappears, he just becomes something else or hides somewhere else. It's also interesting, and just be prepared for me to say the word interesting a million times, but it's also interesting because of the relationship between energy and mass. And listen, I'm a physics/astronomy/psychology/film nerd, but I won't even pretend that I remember half of what I used to know, so I'm playing very loose with these things. In the story, Golden Boy and Miss Math are both great musicians who play together, so in a sense, they're the same, but Miss Math has so much more of Golden Boy's greatness that it's almost like his career is the result of her propelling her own fame. And I don't know how to explain what's in my head with that one, but my point is she's carrying him, okay? So let's move on to the recap of the story. Episode 1, No Man is on the corner selling watches in the city where the cosmic beings live. I thought that was a constant because No Man has a newspaper in his flat called the Constant Chronicle, but who knows. There's a diner called the Hopper, and I try to think of symbolism there, did it represent an actual hopper that's used to pass material into something else, like a funnel, like in Minecraft, but it may just be a cute name for a diner, I don't care. So he's selling watches because he's hungry and broke, samesies. And someone steals a watch, No Man gives chase, and he ends up at Miss Mass's apartment. It looks like she's doing that cliche angry lover thing where she's tossing a dude's belongings out the window. No Man watches her for a while, then heads back to his flat to fix the clock. There's a napkin with a phone number on the floor that says it was given after a night of attraction. He dials it, and it sounds like a man and woman arguing on the other end before it hangs up. No Man rushes to Miss Mass's apartment, bursts in, and Golden Boy's standing there with a gun pointed at Miss Mass. He shoots, bam, and she's hit right between the tits. No Man then goes into this multiverse-looking space where he drinks from a flask, which the game says is a good way to lose track of time, only to end up back at the moment where Golden Boy fires the gun. I feel like No Man watched Miss Mass die, then drank himself into a stupor, which lost track of time, allowing him to go back in it to confront Golden Boy. So Golden Boy is just at it, like pew pew pew, seeding the universe with his energy. No Man is on his heels, and when he catches up to Golden Boy, Goldie taunts him with a watch before smashing it to bits. At first I thought that meant Goldie, and yes, I don't feel like saying Golden Boy anymore, was the one who stole the watch on the street, but no, and we'll get back to the watch later. For now, No Man confronts him. Goldie's like, fuck you, creates a black hole, tosses the watch in it, and pieces out. So No Man decides to come up with a way to stop the Big Bang and save Miss Mass, which, according to his notes, he planned to do with a black hole. Looking around, one of the pictures on Miss Mass's shelf was of Goldie and some other guys, and the caption said it was a portrait of gamblers about to lose it all. I didn't think anything of it then, but remember it for later. And that there is the end of episode 1. Episode 2, No Man searches for Goldie. He finds a flyer that flashes him back to the night he first saw Miss Mass perform. At least that's what I think it is. She winked at him, and that was it. He was smitten. Out of the flashback, No Man catches up to Goldie again. Goldie tells him to fuck off again, but No Man keeps on following. He finds a tie with Miss Mass and Goldie's initials stitched into it, which means it was probably a gift to Goldie from Miss Mass. That sends No Man into another flashback. A night when Goldie was in his dressing room entertaining some ladies. It looked like the tie was hung on the doorknob, which is a sign that means do not disturb cause we in here fucking. So I guess No Man realized back then that Goldie was a cheat who didn't care about Miss Mass. He only cared about stroking his own ego. Out of the flashback, No Man catches up to Goldie again. Goldie's playing a sad sax like a sad sack, reminiscing about the fame he once had that's now gone. The intro to that chapter ended with the phrase that memories of the Dark Age linger to this day, for at the heart of every gas giant lives a failed star. That's a cool metaphor because a star is basically space farts that come together into a cluster that gets so massive and so squinched together from, squinched from the gravitational pull that it heats up and gets so hot it triggers nuclear fusion and burns away, gobbling up all that hydrogen and whatnot. So some gas giants are called failed stars because they had all the makings of a star but didn't have the mass to ignite, which is such a great parallel for Goldie. He had talent and the potential to be a star that burned bright for billions of years, but without Miss Mass, his career fizzled out. Anyway, like I said, No Man finds Goldie all up in his feels, and while he's still mad at Goldie, he hears Goldie play and claps for him, which was kind of nice, even though Goldie is a dick. And Goldie takes his final bow, sheds a tear into his reflection, and drips away into the primordial ooze, leaving his sax behind. That's it for episode 2. Episode 3 starts No Man's personal journey away from chasing Goldie. Goldie's done, okay? He's up in the constellation, twinkling away with his cute little pompadour. Now, No Man is exploring something the Big Bang let loose, a little thing called Earth. This is where the story gets a bit more straightforward because it's the story of us, mankind. The intro into that section says that for most of the universe's age, the only histories were written in the strata of lonely geology, but this quiet would not last. And I think that was just an eloquent way of saying that before us, before sentient life, the only stories to be told were whatever science could glean from examining celestial bodies. Now that we exist, there are real stories to follow, full of life, community, and emotion, and insight to be gained from those stories, and the evolution of our species. And in this case, I don't mean, what the hell was that noise I just heard outside? It sounded like a fucking transformer. It's like Optimus Prime just walked down the block. And now I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, so when I say evolution in this case, I don't mean literal evolution. I mean the way that our societies and cultures progressed throughout history. And that's where the other characters in the game come in. The first one No Man encounters is a primitive woman hunting a stag. And something I noticed when I played the game but didn't have an explanation for was how No Man would sometimes look all dark and lose his outline. I shrugged it off then, but rewatching this episode, I think those were moments when he was hiding himself. Because the first time I see him do it is when he's mourning the death of the stag. The hunter runs over to confirm the kill, I guess, and that's when No Man goes dark. It isn't until I click on him and he goes light again that the hunter turns and looks at him before running away. It's like she didn't see him before that. To me, him hiding implies that these people aren't metaphors. They're actual humans on Earth that this cosmic being, No Man, is observing. But he doesn't want to be seen because he doesn't want to interact with them. He's just exploring to see what he can learn for the sake of achieving his goal of saving Miss Mass. He doesn't care about these weird new creatures, but he starts to, right? He starts following the hunter, and we see him looking at pottery and looms, the crumbling of an ancient structure I recognize but can't remember the name of. It's like this tall tower that looks kind of spirally like an ice cream. I don't know what, it doesn't matter. But he sees a sphinx and a statue of the god Shiva. So he's not only traveling through the history of Earth, he's traveling through regions and cultures. Then he sees a statue of Goldie, which the game called Divine, and the shadow of Goldie cast on the wall as if he's standing in the room. No man runs to find him, but all he finds is what to me looks like Pompeii's destruction. Briefly, before the eruption, there are 3 prominent statues, and this was interesting because I didn't notice this until rewatching my video. The first statue looks like the statue of Goldie that we broke moments earlier, but that statue didn't actually look like Goldie until we broke it. It looked like some old dude with a beard wearing a toga. I assume Pompeii worshipped the Roman gods since it was a Roman city, so that statue might be of some Roman god I can't think of, or of some dusty philosopher since they had a lot of them. The second statue looks like Miss Mass, which I did notice while playing, and the third statue looks like some wild-ass satyr playing a flute, but notably, its horns resemble No Man's hat. So those were clearly statues of Goldie, Miss Mass, and No Man, which implies that humans were aware of these cosmic beings, but represented them in different ways according to their culture and the time. The cool part is that after the volcanic eruption, Goldie's statue is totally destroyed, and Miss Mass's statue has no arms, like the Venus de Milo. Which is confusing because Venus is the Roman name for the goddess and Aphrodite is the Greek name, so the Venus de Milo is a Greek statue using a Roman name. I don't know why I care, but of course Miss Mass would harken back to the goddess of love and beauty. What I don't get is why No Man's statue is missing an arm. Either way, that was the end of episode 3, and yes, I noticed the caduceus staff or whatever it's called. I don't care, okay? But let me say this, I'm having a blast going back through these episodes because there are so many little details I either missed while I was playing or couldn't make out on my tiny TV. Now that I'm looking at it up close on the computer and can pause each frame, I see everything. Moving on, episode 4, No Man heads back to Earth and he's in wintry Japan. He comes across a house on fire. In front is a turned over cart with dolls, tools, and tea leaves. I had to replay that part when the game glitched out, and I remember cutting out that the second time I also found a picture in the cart of a demon. No Man goes to some hut, again looking dark and wibbly womps like he's hiding himself. I'm not 100% sure on how this part went down, but it looks like this important guy, I'll call him a lord, pays some of his guards to go do something while he prepares for a tea reading ceremony. Meanwhile, I head to this tree to complete a puzzle, and some playing cards send No Man into another flashback. This time, Goldie's playing poker, Miss Mass is there, and Goldie is dangling that damn watch in No Man's face. No Man gets drunk, and that's where the flashback ends. Back to Japan, No Man heads back to the hut. There's now another guy with what looks like a jug on his head for some reason. And this is the next character, the Ronin, excusing my horrible Japanese pronunciation because I haven't spoken it in like 10 years. But it's basically a samurai without anyone to samurai for. The Lord brings the samurai inside the hut, and the samurai starts making the tea. The tea spills, the Lord is distracted by it, and the samurai stabs him in the back. When he removes his jug, he sees No Man, but he sees him as the demon that I saw the picture of in the overturned cart. He freaks out, and No Man shows him a pocket watch. Not sure why. Maybe the samurai thinks the demon is there to herald his time being up, so he tries to explain his story to No Man by literally piecing together things that were broken. A bloody offering tray washed clean by spring, a child's doll faded by summer, a crushed skull with autumn's decay, and a ceremonial cup for discussions of peace in winter. In a literal sense, this section was about the seasons due to Earth's tilted axis, but metaphorically, I think it just represents change that comes with the passage of time. So here's what I think happened. I think the samurai assassinated the Lord because the Lord was somehow responsible for the death of the samurai's family or child. Maybe there was supposed to be peace, but it didn't come, and he may have worked for that Lord, which would explain why he had to disguise himself with the jug head, and he used his persona as a tea reader to gain access to the Lord. Surely there are some holes in that, but No Man seems moved by the story. Then the guards burst in, the samurai starts fighting, and No Man is thwapped into the next part, which resembles New York City. It seems like the 1940s because that's when jazz and noir films were really popular and heavily converged, and this is when No Man encounters the next character, the musician. Importantly, or maybe not, No Man doesn't hide himself this time. He just whips out Goldie's sax and plays along. Maybe he felt comfortable because the city reminded him of where he came from, but it's also interesting because while he immersed himself in the world of the hunter and Ronin, it seems like he does the opposite with the musician, where he takes the musician up into the cosmos as if he elevated the musician's mind to a different plane with his tunes. But the trip is ended abruptly when the musician disappears. All we see is his bass left behind with bullets in it and some sketchy thugs on a train, suggesting dude got. And that was it for episode 4. Episode 5, No Man tosses some debris at Goldie's constellation face, which at this point is like, dude, let it go, right? But he finds a napkin with the phone number on it from a late night dinner at the Hopper, sending him into another flashback. This time it's just No Man and Miss Mash sharing a drink, a meal, some chemistry. The flashback ends, No Man takes a nap, and wakes up in modern day inside the Large Hadron Collider, a particle accelerator like the one at CERN. This is when he meets the final human character, the scientist. What I thought while playing this part, by the way, was wrong. There's a moment where she waves at everyone in the lab and points, and they all look at her with question marks over their heads before walking out. I thought she was pointing to tell them to leave, and they were all like, what, why? But now that I realize No Man goes wibbly womps when he's trying to hide, and he's wibbly womping in that moment, what actually happened is she was pointing at him like, hey everyone, look at this dude who came out of the collider. But because he went invisible, they were like, what the fuck are you pointing at? And walked away. So that was interesting too, that he felt comfortable enough for her to see him, but not them. The rest of that part was a bunch of puzzles and reading that I unfortunately failed to capture. What matters is that he helped her do the science until she had a breakthrough and left her book behind. When we check the book, it has a NASA sticker on it and belongs to a Dr. Alice Bowman with a caption that says it contains the answer to the question, how to end the Big Bang, which is of course what No Man has been seeking all along. I looked Alice Bowman up because I figured with everything else in the game referencing real history, real science, Alice Bowman was probably real too, and I was like, oh my god, because I recognized her as soon as I saw her picture. She's the missions operations manager for New Horizons, which is all about minding Pluto's business. I don't know if she has anything to do with using a super collider, so that may have just been a nod rather than an actual parallel of her work, but when you open the book, there are notes about a Mars project. She also jotted down notes about my character. She says he came out of the particle accelerator and doesn't register as human or of earthly origin. He is No Man. So that's another way you can interpret the developer's choice to name him No Man. It just means he ain't no man, which is a lot simpler than mine. It's also cute that with the picture she drew of him, she wrote 1950s? Because that's his style. So like I said, he may have felt right at home with the musician because he identified with the era. For whatever reason, his cosmic world resembles the 40s and 50s. Anyway, reading more, the book says that one possible fate for the universe is for the expansion of the Big Bang to slow to a crawl and reverse under the power of gravity, and that they were finally able to mimic the creation of a black hole. Ta-da! Now that No Man has his answer, he studies the book and follows the instructions, piecing together all the little bits of energy we gathered up throughout the game to make a black hole. That's the end of episode 5. Now we come to the finale, the end of the game, episode 6. And this is where shit got confusing for me, so it's what I'm going to focus on for the rest of this log as far as my theories and interpretations. No Man is in another flashback. This time it's a bunch of hymns walking into Miss Mass's place. During the game, I thought it was symbolic of all the men who orbit around her, who've all gone through the same motions. Meeting her, being enamored by her, her finally inviting them over for a roll in the cosmic hay. But I realize now that doesn't make sense. All the instances we see of No Man are No Man. So maybe it is, like I said earlier, more of a multiverse kind of thing where it's just all the variants of him and these moments, and I'm just controlling this one in particular. Regardless, he heads in and they sex it up. The flashback ends. Now we're in a future where humans are fleeing Earth on ships. When I go to fling Earth into a black hole, something stops me. A figure appears, and I don't know how I didn't register this when I was playing, but they appear on what looks like a teleportation platform harnessing power from the same shape No Man is using to create the black holes. And it didn't click until now that the shape is the golden ratio, but never mind that. There's a city in the figure's background, and they're wearing a protective suit. They call No Man an old friend, and I'm like, who the fuck are you? And they take their helmet off, and it's this white being who splits into the human characters, the hunter, the Ronin, the musician, and the scientist. The hunter calls No Man an ancestral spirit, begging him to stop. The Ronin calls him an eternal demon, demanding he stop, sword raised. The musician calls him Beat Brother, asking him to stop by saying, "Stop time," which is a music thing. And the scientist calls him Time Traveler, asking him to stop worrying, which was curious. That she didn't say stop, she said stop worrying. They turn back into the white being that I'll call Ivory. Ivory tells No Man he has a choice. Now it looked like the choice was to return home or destroy everything. The game only let me click on what seemed to be the destroy option, and Ivory got pissed. So they kissed me angrily and tossed me into the black hole for a little timeout. After a bunch of doodling in the dark, No Man escapes, but it costs him an arm, just like the statue in Pompeii foretold. Though I don't have a theory yet for what that represents. If anything, it might just be that he lost a fucking arm. I don't know. When you look around, life is still thriving as you see futuristic space gates and spaceships zipping all around. And he finds Ivory, who's like, "Hey buddy, you look great, all things considered, and I know you're mad, but dude, you're here now. And that's what counts, right?" No Man isn't in the mood, and Ivory realizes he's really in pain, and they reach out to him, which triggers a weird but awesome musical dance sequence about lovey-dovey cosmic togetherness or whatever. Then, after what the game calls a vision of a flowering future, No Man has another flashback, only Ivory comes along to watch it play out. They watch everything No Man's been through, and Ivory, looking sad and defeated, asks No Man if they can stop it. No Man says no. A realization he finally came to. Now he's comforting Ivory until the game fucked up and froze, but we won't talk about that. After getting back in, there's a room. On one side is Miss Mass, on the other is Earth. In between are doors, each leading to one of the humans. The first door, titled The Endless Hunt, led to the hunter, and there were 3 choices, each with her face, that I initially interpreted as past, present, and future, though now I think they just represent different paths or timelines. So the 3 choices were titled An Endless Hunger, A Revolution Begins, and Hunting for Bison. Hunting for Bison looked like she got killed by bison. A Revolution Begins looked like she was just herding sheep. And An Endless Hunger looked like she hunted until there was no more food and died of starvation. All the eyes of the faces remained closed, but the middle one opened, the one that represented herding sheep. We pop out of that and head to the second door, titled Revenge in Winter, which led to the Ronin. Same pattern, 3 faces, 3 paths. Under Winter Snows, which had him fleeing the guards after the assassination and being hunted until he finally froze to death. Season for Peace, which I think had him rebuilding the broken shrine to the lord he killed. And Revenge is Found, where he finally got cut down by the guards. Same as the hunter, the eyes with the peaceful option opened. The third door, titled Playing the Hits, led to the musician. Just the Hits had him getting knocked the fuck out by thugs. A New Tempo had him talking them down from shooting him and him killing them softly with his song instead. I don't know what I'm looking at. And All Played Out had him tossing sheet music in the trash as the thugs watched. The sheet music said Delimiter by Nick Scheidel? Or Scheidel? Not sure how that's pronounced, but I don't know if that's a reference that would matter to me, so I didn't look it up. But it seems like the musician's story, as No Man experienced it, was that someone wanted him to stop playing his music and he was killed over it. That's either very interesting or very incorrect. But the final door, titled Inquiry into Relativity, led to the scientist. Relatively large problems had her creating a black hole that expanded out of control, sucking her in. All-consuming inquiry had her losing herself in her obsession with the black hole, I guess, where that was the only thing left in her life that she held on to. And an impromptu experiment had the black hole she created again expanding out of control, but her rigging something up to use its energy to maybe boost the collider, escaping through a rift to a place that looked suspiciously like the rift and place Ivory came from. Which makes me wonder if Ivory is the scientist who traveled into a future or dimension or something that transformed her into this cosmic entity. Like she transcended her humanity enough to now exist on No Man's level, but still retains her humanity, which is why as Ivory, she's just this amalgamation of the whole of the human experience as represented by these 4 characters. It would explain why Ivory calls No Man an old friend, even though we haven't seen Ivory before, because the scientist was the only human that was actually his friend. But it wouldn't explain why the devs would bother to depict Ivory as all four human characters if Ivory was actually a transcendent form of only one of them. I don't know. Either way, Ivory yoinks the infamous watch out of No Man's pocket, which No Man doesn't like. And here's where we see a montage of what happened between Miss Mass, Goldie, and No Man. I couldn't follow it at all when I was playing, but going frame by frame now, this is what I think happened. Miss Mass showed up at No Man's flat and bought a watch from him, which she gave to Goldie as a gift. But Goldie liked to gamble, and was good at it, as indicated by the picture of him gambling that we saw much earlier on Miss Mass's shelf, you know, the one I told you to remember? So he played cards with No Man, confidently betting the watch Miss Mass so lovingly gave him. You can see her weeping in the background. Unexpectedly, Goldie lost, and No Man put the watch on his wrist. He starts coming to their shows, going out with Miss Mass for drinks, one thing leads to another, and now they're having a full-blown affair. It seems like she takes the watch off No Man's wrist while he's asleep, and meets up with Goldie to tell them they're through. He can take his watch back and get the hell out of her life. The bouncers toss him out, and she tears up his posters. Without her, Goldie loses everything. The women, the spotlight, the music. He wears the watch, obsessing over it, over her. He eventually gets a gun, heads to her place, and bam, the rest is history. And the watch became a sort of fuck you, since it didn't mean anything to Goldie, but Goldie knew it meant something to No Man. Reliving that pain, Ivory takes No Man's hand and says, "You don't have to save anyone," which I think Ivory says because there are so many paths with the potential for peace, destruction, and loss either way. If No Man can't change that, why beat himself up over it, right? Then there's a section with the humans waxing poetic, which I won't talk about except for their last collective stanza. Our imagination embodies the dark, unknown, and myth. Out of this unknowable haze, a world emerges wrapped in familiar forms. Our mind transforms the wisps of preternatural smoke into bodies and steel and concrete. Our experience reshapes the world and makes this form eternal. We give it a name. We call it the Constant. Now remember, I said that the newspaper No Man had in his flat was called the Constant Chronicle. If it's a local paper, that implies he lives in the Constant. So that last paragraph makes it sound like humans gave birth to No Man's reality by embodying all the things we don't know about the universe in our imaginative myth, just like the devs did with this game, turning the questions we can't answer into places and things familiar to us. A city, a diner, a love story. At any rate, we come to the final choice, right? The section called Exodus. Ivory floats around in a fetal position with the watch until they go through some sort of transformation that allows them to travel through the fragments of the universe's beginnings. Don't ask me about this part, I don't really know. But they find the gun Goldie used to kill Miss Mass and hesitantly give it to No Man. They shiver, which is weird, and No Man gives them his coat, which looks pretty cool hanging on Ivory's shoulders, not gonna lie. As they find themselves back at what I'll call the point of divergence, the moment when No Man went to Miss Mass's apartment for sex, Ivory reminds No Man that he doesn't have to save anyone. The choice presented to me is to do what No Man did before and sleep with Miss Mass or walk away. I played through both endings, but my first decision was to walk away. That unlocked the achievement called Alone, with the description, made the less lonely choice. No Man leaves the apartment building, tosses the watch in the trash, and heads to the hopper to eat alone. The final stanza says, "You would have called this place the Constant. I sit alone. My cheap coffee cools as I voice each of the many names you would have had. Knowing you would look at me with pride, I feel myself torn. My body, the steel of this counter, the concrete of the pavement, it all dissolves back into wisps of preternatural smoke as you fade from memory. I have no plan, and I take another sip. Imagination embodies the dark, unknown, and myth, and that is all that you are." So you see again how what he's describing about his surroundings aligns with what the humans described as being the thing that they created. But before we compare that to the other ending, I need to work out what I think this one means. If Goldie only shot Miss Mass because she broke up with him, and she only broke up with him because of her affair with No Man, then choosing not to sleep with her should mean she doesn't die, the Big Bang never happens, the universe is never expanded, Earth never exists, and humans never exist. I get why that means he's alone. He doesn't have Miss Mass, and he doesn't have the humans. But why is being alone the less lonely choice? Is the implication that by distancing himself from everyone, he had nothing to miss or regret? So even though he's alone, he's less lonely than he would have been suffering through what he did before? If so, fine. But why does he rush from the diner when he sees police cars speeding by? Does that mean that in spite of him not sleeping with Miss Mass, things still played out? She still left Goldie because he was an asshole, and he still shot her? Was No Man running to see? Or was he just running to fix the clock tower again? I'm honestly not sure, but that's where it ends. Also, when I made the choice to walk away, No Man was kind of a jerk about it, throwing the flower he was going to give Miss Mass on the floor and turning his back to her as she reached for him. That makes me rethink their dynamic. No Man could see his memories, but I don't think he could see anything that happened when he wasn't there. He only saw the full picture the same time we did, when Ivory took the watch. What if Miss Mass was only using No Man to make Goldie jealous? What if that's why she took the watch off No Man while he was sleeping to throw it in Goldie's face? No Man wouldn't remember that happening. He was catching those post-coital zeds. And was that why he was sad after seeing those flashbacks? Because he realized Miss Mass didn't really have feelings for him? Is that why Ivory said, you know, you don't have to save anyone? Wink, meaning it's fine if you don't save this bitch. Like, what do you think? As for the second ending where I did sleep with Miss Mass, it unlocked the achievement Not Alone, with the description Made the Lonely Choice. Now, I already threw out my interpretation of the opposite achievement, so just reverse that. He's not alone because Ivory, who I think represents humanity, is with him, but he's still lonely because he lost his woman. Anyway, rounding things out, like I said, I sleep with Miss Mass, and all the wonky hippy-dippy colors come back. No Man looks sad and clenches his fist, but Ivory, who's still there this time, takes his hand and holds it. At this point, everything plays out the same as it did at the start of the game. The breakup, the gun, the big bang. Only this time, instead of trying to stop it, we see images of No Man putting flowers on Miss Mass's grave. Meanwhile, Ivory looks around, curious like the place is new to them, and they head to the Hopper for a drink. This time, the final verse says, "You call this place the constant. You sit beside me. Bubbles dance in my beer glass as I voice each of your many names. You look at me with a sense of achievement, and I feel myself torn. You ask what the true nature of reality looks like, what existed before the Big Bang rocketed the universe into existence. I tell you these are unanswerable questions. You reply that you have big plans, and I take another drink. Imagination embodies the dark unknown in myth, and in time, that is what you will become." When the police cars go blazing by this time, both Ivory and No Man are startled, grasping each other's hand. The end. So if I'm right that No Man is time, and Ivory represents humankind, meaning all that we were, all that we are, and all that we will one day become, it's interesting that sirens, the universal sound of emergency, you know, the woo-woo badness, made them hold on to each other. Because humans do, in a way, cling to time to comfort us when things are uncertain, trusting time to reveal truths, to heal wounds, to open doors. Now, I don't even want to guess how long I've been recording, but I'm gonna look, oh, okay, like something shy of an hour. But we've come to the end, the fun part for me at least, where I take a look at the game's website and see what I can find there to either confirm or debunk my theories. I'll check the wiki page too if there is one. So, the website says it's set before, during, and after the Big Bang. To save your love, you must stop the expansion of the universe. Right, I already got that. Oh, this is something I didn't pick up on. The website says Earth is a fragment of shrapnel hurtling towards the fragile heart of a god. So maybe that's why No Man was observing and exploring Earth in the first place. It wasn't just because we've got all the cool species, including us. It was because Earth is what would have pierced Miss Mass's heart. Yeah, further down it says, discover if there's anything special about this rock. So that's why we went to Earth. Got it. No Man is described as a watch peddler stuck in a deterministic hell. So basically he's in a position where things are happening outside of his control. Golden Boy is a narcissistic artist who loves to create and destroy, definitely. Miss Mass is an alluring jazz singer who attracts all who come close. Yeah, I got that. All right, that's it for the website. Let's check the wiki. Okay, so this first part agrees with me. It says No Man is time. Goldie is, well, Golden Boy is energy, and Miss Mass is mass, or specifically the mass of the universe. But it says something I did ask myself and didn't see an answer for. It says no man fell into depression after breaking up with Miss Mass, so he tried to call her, and that's when he heard the argument and rushed over to find Goldie about to pop her weasel, which sounds disgusting, and I don't like that I said it. But I wondered about that, like where him calling her fit into the timeline, because I don't remember seeing anything indicating that they'd broken up, just that he was smitten with her and maybe hadn't seen her in a while. I do feel like this makes sense though, because it would line up with my alternate theory of her having used him to make Goldie jealous. Maybe she broke off the affair with No Man after she kicked Goldie to the curb, and we just didn't see that part in the game. Regardless, I'm tired now. So let's just say this. If you have any cool theories of your own about the game, or anything confirmed by the dev that contradicts my interpretations, let me know. Link to it if you can so I can check it out. But man, I just love Genesis Noir, like so much that I sounded like I was about to cough up a hairball for some reason. But like the game, man, it really hit all the right notes, pun intended. And I'm so glad I experienced it and that I finished this damn log. Time to finish my seltzer and relax.